Thank you, Chair McCann. And Senator Irwin, thank you so much for leading this bill package. Senate Bill 385 is a companion bill to the bills introduced by Senators Irwin and Moss, and it amends the Administrative Procedures Act to add cleanup criteria and target detection limits developed by EGLE to the rules exemption under the Administrative Procedures Act, protecting them from being altered without proper review and scrutiny. But I actually really wanted to take a couple minutes to share an example of how important this bill package is for my district and really the whole state. As others have noted, over the course of time, and we're talking decades in many cases, we learn more about pollutants, their dangers to our public health, and sometimes we learn about a site's history of contamination, things that weren't necessarily properly documented in the first place. During my 10 years in this legislature, I've had the honor of representing 3 different districts, like many of you, and every single one has contained portions of Detroit's beautiful riverfront. The Detroit River is our precious natural resource and beloved by the residents of Detroit and the region. It's also a major source of drinking water for the region. It's an important part of what has also made the city of Detroit the trade and economic hub that it is today. But in its many years of history, much of the industrial activity has caused innumerable environmental challenges for our land and water. And when millions of people use the Great Lakes for drinking water, the need for expedient notification requirements about hazardous substance releases is obvious. Just before Thanksgiving 2019, there was a major dock collapse on the Detroit River at the former Revere Copper property operated by Detroit Bulk Storage in Southwest Detroit, then in my district, caused by the combination of high water levels and the tremendous weight of the aggregate stored on site. This location had once had radioactive contamination because it was a former munitions site for the U.S. Department of Defense. Revere Copper and Brass operated this site in the 1920s and for a few decades, and the Department of Energy employed Revere to roll uranium rods used for atomic bomb construction under the Manhattan Project. Uranium was last used at the facilities into the 1950s. The facility did close operations in 1984 and was demolished. But when the dock collapsed, the operator of the site failed to notify EGLE or any other public officials. And part of the reason why may have been because the operator, our understanding is that the operator at the site didn't actually have a complete sense of what types of contamination or substances might have been released into the water, so there wasn't a clear state requirement for reporting. State and local officials were only made aware of the dock failure and the release of soil and sediment into the river after a resident noticed the collapsed site from the water and submitted pictures to the media, as well as to me directly, and both the media and I contacted EGLE and they moved quickly then on their response. After that incident, I began working with colleagues on legislation that included a 24-hour notification requirement, a small part of what the much more comprehensive Senate Bill 391 requires, which is better and stronger. The Revere Copper dock collapsed in 2019, and also the sinkhole that emerged 2 years later at the same site were glaring examples of how important it is that we have an ongoing publicly available inventory about contaminated sites, response action plans, environmental assessments, and more, especially for sites along major waterways. As residents were learning about the first collapse in 2019 and the history of the site with uranium rods, no one among the public had a great way to be able to quickly find out what exactly was going on at the site and what types of contamination we were facing. So as you can imagine, people were extremely worried for their health and safety. Thankfully, EGLE found no uranium at the site any longer, but there was mercury, PCBs, and PAHs. So we worked on legislation to address the need for a public database of contaminated sites along major waterways a few terms ago, and I'm pleased that this polluter accountability bill package, which is much broader and comprehensive, is finally being heard in the Senate today. Michigan's agricultural and industrial history are an important consideration to our future as a state where people want to live, to farm, to start a business, and to spend recreational time and money. But we need to act responsibly and make sure that as a state we are fully informed about the types of contamination that exist across sites, the remediation that's needed, and plans to ensure due care. When we are dealing with a situation like the dock collapse or countless other contamination sites across the state, time is critical. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Senator. And Representative Morgan, thank you for joining us.